Welcome to everybody's favorite series, reading your real-life paranormal, mysterious, unexplainable encounters. This is where I ask my followers if you guys had any unexplainable, mysterious incidences that happened in your life. And welcome to Spooktober, one of my favorite months. You guys know I am the Halloween queen. I have a Halloween song out back in 2016, I think. One of the stories that you guys really wanted to know, are there any mystical creatures in South Korea that you guys should know about? And I have found some, as these creatures are written down from the scholars' actual documentations. We're talking about legit diplomats from South Korea from the Joseon Dynasty from like 1500s that wrote down their encounters with these mystical creatures. Are they mythology or real? You guys be the judge. It is interesting that somebody pointed out that especially in the Chinese zodiac signs, all of these animal signs are real life animals that you see today, but there's one particular animal that seems to be a mythical creature to all of us, which is the dragon sign. And also in South Korea during the Joseon Dynasty, there were scholars, official diplomats from the 1600s to 1700s who wrote about this venomous dragon in their encyclopedia. But one of the most common dragons that's talked about in Korean history is called Kangcheol. Kangcheol is described as a venomous dragon, and he uses his venom that causes droughts and dries out the trees and plants. It's also written in some of the texts that he causes hails. So it seems like this dragon somehow relates to the weather. Now, across different books, there are little variations of what this creature looks like. But generally, Kangcheol is described to have a body of a horse or an ox with a dragon-like face, and he spits venom. Now, could it be that these dragon creatures were real and maybe we call them dragons maybe back then? Maybe it was part dinosaur, part like different type of reptilian beings that were used to be out there. And maybe they were wiped out, or maybe the truth is erased from our history and only the ancient people, our ancestors, know about this? Or could it be that dragons may be one of like half mythical creatures, half 3D creatures? Meaning kind of like Bigfoot, chupacabras, Loch Ness. I mean, there's many creatures out there from different ethnicities. Some people say this is because they have the ability to come in and out of dimensions or maybe parallel worlds, whatever it might be. So maybe Kangcheol, the Korean dragon, used to be somewhere along that line. But it gets better because I found a South Korean creature that's written down in the documents as if it can't be mistaken that this is a mythical creature. So there was a Korean movie released in 2018 called Monstrum or 물개. Now in the movie, the creature or the beast starts out from a little tiny dog from the Joseon Dynasty, and it starts to run away and fed on people. So this little dog became this big monster. Of course, this is the movie version of what 물개 looks like. But did you know that this movie was actually based on a real story? This creature was written down on multiple records, one of them being the record of the Joseon Dynasty. This book was said to be a record of daily journals from a diplomat from the time of 1392 to 1865. And in this book, it states, at night, a monster slash creature that looked like a dog came out and ran towards the tomb, the halls. When the guards would chase the strange creature that came over the buildings of where diplomats and kings used to live, the creature being chased would then escape over the walls. And this happened in the 1500s, by the way. Another excerpt from this diary and this record states that one of the members, I guess he was like a member of the diplomat, he fainted from a sleep paralysis, and the others tried to wake him up and save him. But when he looked around, the other diplomat members was trying to wake the guy from sleep paralysis. He claims that he saw a sapsari dog-like creature the size of a foal coming out of one of the rooms from the palace slash diplomat buildings. Other soldiers also witnessed it and ran towards the gate to try and run after it. It also made a big, loud noise. This incident apparently caused a huge chaos throughout the palace. We're talking about grown men like this screaming because they saw an unidentified, creepy-looking creature. Also recorded that from the room where the creature came out of, there was a quote, a fishy smell. And just like in the movie, in real life as well, recorded in these texts, the officials found out that the whole entire diplomat and palace was under fear because of this incident. The officials told everyone to don't spread rumors because of somebody's bad dream he had. It's causing a disturbance to everyone, and even though you smell something and heard something, there is no proof that such thing exists. Anyone who spreads these rumors will be punished. So what could this hairy creature that looked like a dog, the size of a foal, I guess that's like a smaller horse? I mean, could it be a bear? But everybody knew what a bear looked like back then. Of course, people who have doubts and look at these stories as completely made up and it's a mythology, they claim that just like any other mythological stories, people used to write these fantasies that represented time of chaos, where in times of injustice, unfairness, kings being cruel, a lot of anxiety when it came to living in fear, that people created these mythological creatures to represent those times of chaos. I do believe that there are mythological creatures in mythological poems or maybe stories, fantasy books that people used to write, but in documentations like this, where people recorded politics, economics, what happened in their daily, day-to-day, everyday real life, and they included this monster story in there. So what do you guys think this monster was that the diplomats recorded? A hairy wolf? A new species of animal that hasn't been discovered yet? Or a multi-dimensional monster? Alright, we're gonna get into the first unexplainable stories from you guys, and this is from Paris. She says, I have a cousin who's in the age where kids tell you the weirdest things. It's when they're starting to become self-aware but still say weird things as if they haven't fully developed a grasp of reality, you know? Weird things never happened to me, but my mom told me once when my cousins were over. The younger one was helping her with some house chores. My mom was impressed over how skilled she was for a 3 to 4-year-old, doing everything neatly and perfectly. She asked if mommy or daddy had taught her, and she said no, she just remembers it from her previous life. Completely out of nowhere. My mom stared at her absolutely flabbergasted and asked her to tell more about it, and she confined the most bizarrely specific things you wouldn't expect to come out of a child's mouth. Like it was all so specific and weird. She also said she's starting to forget about those memories. My uncle always monitors what she was watching, and when I was babysitting her, I watched things with her to make sure she's consuming children-friendly content. Her side of the family is atheist, so I have no idea where she would have learned that from. It's not common at all in our culture to believe in past lives or even talk about it. Interesting. Well, guess what? Recently, I've actually gone under past life hypnosis with a professional hypnosis. And yes, the video is coming, me going under hypnosis. And I remember specific things when I was younger, like random thoughts, random images that I saw in my head that I've never seen on TV that continuously repeated till I was like in middle school. I'm wondering if some of these flashes that we have in our head are from our past lives. So if you have a kid or know someone who has a kid and they say or do some of the weirdest, wildest thing, like Paris' story, I would ask my kid, like, where'd you learn that? If you guys remember something from your past life or gone through past life hypnosis like me, leave a comment down below. The next submission is by an anonymous submissioner. Now, to fast forward the story, she lives in the Philippines, and her cousin and her mom and dad, so the whole relatives and family, were going to her grandparents' house, which you had to go through a forest to get to their property. So she says, my younger cousin and I were walking together and was in another route where we don't have to climb up that steep hill, and it's also a shorter route out to that forest. Then my dad came in his motorcycle with my younger brother. I told my cousin she can ride so she doesn't have to walk back and that I will go with my mom instead. Now in the Philippines, we have this thing called Engkantos. They are spiritual creatures. If they get interested in you, they will find ways to take you back to their kingdom or place. I yelled at my mom and told her I'll go with them instead, and everybody saw my cousin on the motorcycle and my dad sped off with her on the back. I walked back with everyone and was almost near the entrance to the forest when my dad came back and asked me where my cousin was, if she was with me. I said no, and that I saw her with him, and that she was at the back of the motorcycle. They yelled at me and scolded me hard. I was crying, thinking my cousin got lost and that it was my fault. Then moments later, some people found my cousins coming out of the other entrance through the shortcut we were supposed to take together. She was all muddy and dirty, as if she swam in the muddy pond or fell into one. People were asking her what happened, and she was crying so hard. And this is her cousin's version of what happened to her. So my dad's motorcycle did stop in front of us for a few minutes. She said that she saw me me walk away after I told her she can ride the motorcycle instead. Then what happened next was the motorcycle suddenly sped off when I went to my mom, and that she shouted at my dad to tell him she was not able to ride. She ran after him and screamed loudly, but he was not able to hear her. Now in that forest, if you scream, everyone should be able to hear you, but no one heard her at all. So she knows the shortcuts as we've been through it several times, and she decided to stop running and walked back home instead. While walking, she felt that the surroundings suddenly got quiet and she couldn't hear anything at all. She followed the tire tracks left by my dad's motorcycle. She followed the one that looked very similar to my dad's, then kept walking until she encountered a huge tree, and from there she saw me. She said that I was wearing a white shirt and was wearing a pair of black denim shorts with the rest of my body hiding behind the tree. The me she saw was beckoning her to come close and asked her to go near the huge tree. Now my cousin remembered that I was wearing a lavender t-shirt and a pair of shorts with newspaper print design, so there was no way that person will be me. She ignored that thing and then kept walking until she felt like it's been hours. Then she saw the exit and ran while crying. We asked her how the mud came to be, and she said that she didn't notice she was muddy until she got out of the exit. We had an albolero come and check on her because she had a fever that night. We were told that an Engkanto got interested in her and decided that they wanted to take her. It creeped me out so much because one, they knew my cousin trusted me so much and had copied me. From then on, I decided to never ever let her leave out of my sight again if we ever go to my grandpa's property again. We never came back to that place for years actually. We were still shaken from what happened to her. Ooh. Goosebumps. From what I heard and what can possibly happen to your cousin, apparently there's certain pinpoints around our earth, especially like in the forest areas, and apparently this portal can open up to different creatures, different entities, and apparently if you're very young, like a child, you don't have entire control of your consciousness or even your subconsciousness or your energy because you're kind of like a whiteboard, and any kind of energies, good or bad, can come inside of you because you don't really have this like block, and it can manipulate her vision, what she hears, and her surroundings. So maybe that is what happened to your cousin, and she was strong enough to not follow that, to not like fall into those energy manipulations. So thank God she was able to kind of snap out of it. From what I've learned, you have the willpower to say yes or no. So if you say no, get away from me, they won't bother you, but they will try to manipulate and try to get to you. And if you go willingly, who knows what could have happened to her. And maybe that's why some people that it's not like kidnapping or murdered. Maybe some people go missing in these forests because they do go into this weird shifted parallel reality or are taken by these lower creatures or frequencies and take them into another world. So user O whatever says, I have two beautiful elder sisters. Unfortunately, they both passed away. They were so similar yet so different. Maria was born in October 11th, 1983, and Nat was born in March 11th, 1985. Maria passed away in June 6, 2012, and Nat died in September 6, 2020. Maybe it's a coincidence that they were born and died on the same day. So they were both born on the 11th and they passed away on the 6th, both of them. But it's not the end. My family and I went to the cemetery to say the last goodbye. There was a tree near my sister's graves. It was just a tree when I saw it in 2012, but then after years it grew one more branch like a whole new tree. And it looked, you know, like two trees having one root. It looked like the letter Y. That was creepy yet beautiful. My mom told me they were like twins and it showed even after their death. I miss them so much. Thank you, O, for sharing your story. She actually sent me a picture as well. I asked her for the tree picture, and apparently this is the Y that she is talking about. Some coincidences do exist in the world, but I believe some are just too good to be true, right? Maybe there was some meaning to your sisters for the same dates. The next story is by Vivian, and this is about a love potion or a love spell. This happened to my friend's brother. So her brother just got married, and not long after, his wife was only a few months away to give birth to their first son when her brother had an affair with another girl, and he got the girl pregnant as well. Her parents couldn't bear to see her sister-in-law suffering at this time. She was always upset, and my friend's brother never came home. So after giving birth, her sister-in-law divorced him. Her brother just started a new life with his new wife, the side chick, without caring anything about it, and didn't even come to support her when she was having labor. Her parents and grandparents had a fight with her brother, and their relationship was in a critical situation. One day, her brother came to visit her mother at her place, and due to some reason couldn't return to his home, even though his mistress asked him to come home that day. That evening, he fainted and all his body hardened. My friend and her mother was the only person there at the time. I didn't know what to do because of shock, but my friend noticed he was still alive. Since the hospital was far and his situation was not normal, their neighbor advised them to take him to a visioner. They went there and he told them that his wife, the mistress, has been mixing potion in his drink daily. And since he didn't drink it that day, he was in that situation. He also told them that the mistress' mother was good at making that potion and had helped her daughter put it in his food since she fell in love with him, and even though he was married and his wife was pregnant. Vivian commented farther what happened, and she said, they divorced, the mistress and the man, and he found out that his mistress's wife was not his real child, and that the mistress was so shameful that she left his son with him and ran away. What? From priestesses, people who practice witchcraft, I've heard that love potions and love spells do work, but quote, the dangerous thing about love spells is that it has to be done consistently. It is not something that you put your intentions out once and then it happens forever. It is something that you must do like every single day, because technically you're going energetically into that person's space, manipulating, stirring things around, and you have to like consistently do it. Not only that, you're kind of messing with someone's free will without letting them know. I've also heard recently from one of the actors, this video went viral on TikTok, and one of the TikTok actors says that he was dating someone that did some kind of like this witchcraft, and she had this flower that if you ate this flower, it was going to give you a really great love life and in the bed. So he claims that he ate this flower and he had this magical moment.
Sono una persona che non crede a queste cose. Ho fatto questo fiore quella sera, prima di andare a letto con questa, che però, fratello, è stato veramente magico, incredibile. Non ho mai provato una cosa del genere. L'ho provata per 1 anno e mezzo.
He says that it's one of the nights that he will never forget. And I personally say do not do love spells, and the reason is because it's not true love. Or like this guy, like you're gonna get sick. This person might get sick physically, maybe because their energy has been dependent on this love potion and this manipulations of his energy that now it is affecting him physically. Next story is by Allison. This is a hospital horror story experienced as a night shift nurse. When I was working at a geriatric hospital, there are incidents that our patients would call us to tell the child to stop running around. And sometimes after an unsuccessful resus, other patients from the same cubicle would say, "Why is he walking alone?" while pointing into the air. At another hospital where I worked, things like the other nurse already came and checked me, or patients or relatives would often claim a nurse came into their room and regulated the IVFs, and they would say the nurse wearing a skirt. Nobody wears a skirt uniform for years now, and sometimes we would get locked out of the patient's room, although relatives claim they never locked the room. To avoid being scared, we often just say people in the hospital lack sleep, that's why we see weird things, or say as long as they don't do harm to us, we can coexist. And even the utilities and cleaning crews say the same thing about seeing ghosts. So maybe when it is time for you to pass, you know, we all are gonna pass one day, that we do go in and out. And maybe it's not us losing our minds, literally going crazy, but we're losing our minds, meaning we're ready to leave and we're able to see this thin veil. Similar story. Nat Nguyen says, my brother is a nurse and he told me one of his paranormal experiences at work. My brother is working at the oncology part of the hospital, so the chance of patients not making it through is very high. One day, he and one of the other nurses were taking care of the patients. I was very close to her time to pass, like she was gonna be gone in the next few days. They were doing their duty and the patient suddenly sat straight up. She was a bit shaky. So my brother asked her if she needed anything. To his surprise, the patient talked in a strange voice saying, "Jenny is not here." Jenny is a patient's name. And then, after a few seconds, she laid back down like nothing happened. She was gone the next day. I've heard stories of people getting possessed when they are close to their time due to their body being vulnerable to other invisible entities to enter. Those people, when possessed, are usually shaky and they would speak in the voice of the entity that possessed them. The story chilled me to the bones. I do think it makes sense that especially when you're a kid and when you're older, like elder, and you're about to pass, that might be the times when our energies are very thin. Because, you know, poltergeist or lower frequency energies need a body, need a host in order for them to come into our physical reality, right? I mean, it only makes sense. Next story is by Little Notebook. She says, my grandma told me when she was a teen, one night her friends and her had to walk through a dark forest to go home. After her friends left in the direction of their home, she kept walking until she saw a group of very tiny humans, as tiny as her hands, walking in a straight line. She started running in another direction and saw that some of them were running after her. When she turned around again, they vanished. She always believed she saw something like a leprechaun that night. Whoa. Maybe the stories of leprechauns and gnomes, the little people from like Lord of the Rings, I forgot what their name is, but maybe those species of humanoids used to exist, just like they say giants used to exist. If there were giants, maybe there were little people out there. But I would love to see a tiny human. That's actually pretty cool. Alright, the last story is by Natasha. Hi Grace, I have a story to tell, to which this day I don't really know if it's a ghost, but it gave me the chills. My mom and I love to go hiking every springtime at a nearby mountain which has amazing views. After reaching the top, my mom and I normally take the road down, but we had extra time on our hands and decided to take a new trail going down. The trail was called Pigeon Forage Trail, and a lot of people don't normally take this trail because it's longer to get to the bottom and has a lot of steep hills and uneven roads going down. I also just want to let you know this mountain was a battlefield during the Civil War, so it's a very historical place. Upon heading down, just the two of us alone, my mom and I saw this boy who was looking up at the trees, and he seemed to be about 18 years old, slender, very pale, with nothing else on him. He had some type of Civil War outfit with a thick buttoned up coat, with a belt around his waist and worn out boots. He seemed out of place, and my mother and I were very confused what he was doing by himself, unequipped, with no water bottles on him, heavy clothing. It was like 80 degrees outside, and nothing else on him for hiking. And we were 2 miles to reaching the parking lot, so we were pretty deep into the forest. While passing him, I believe I stared a little too hard, and he looked right back at me with his blue eyes. And I noticed he started to slowly turn into our direction, like he was about to approach us, but he did it in a very slow manner. It gave us the creeps, and my mom and I decided to run a little. After 5 minutes of running, we stopped and I turned around to see if he was there, and the only thing I saw was a man with exercise clothes jogging behind us. Reaching the parking lot, we went to check to see if there were any reenactments going on, but we didn't see anyone dressed up. Looking back at it, maybe he was a homeless guy or a guy who was bird watching, but then again, it felt very odd. I'd never even seen a homeless man wearing a Civil War outfit, or maybe it seemed Civil War-ish because maybe he had worn out clothes. You said that he looked about 18, very young, but 18 is a standard age that people were sent off to wars. Heavy clothing during the 80 degrees of weather and going up in the forest is interesting. Maybe this is a soldier that passed away, and his spirit and his ghost is still lingering, and maybe his ghost is still wandering out there like what happened to me. There are ghosts that just are lost and cannot get to the other side, and or as my friend explained it could be like a time loop where if you see ghosts that seem to repeatedly show up and do the same thing, it's not actually ghost or entity there. It's actually like a film, a movie being shown over and over and over again because the energy lingers there. Let me know what you guys have thought about all these stories and what might be the explanation. If you have any personal, unexplainable, crazy stories like today, leave a comment down below. You might be chosen for the next video. See you guys in my next video, and happy Spooktober!